Now, I'm sure there'll be some pushback for the topic of this video, but it is an important conversation to have. What's the conversation? Well, if you haven't read the title, it's do we still need professional photographers? Things like product photographers, photographers for real estate, and so on. Well, today I want to take a look at answering that question, but as always, I do welcome your thoughts and feedback. Drop a comment down below on how you found this. Have you replaced the need for those pro photographers, or are you still using them? Let me know. Okay, so let's take a couple of real world examples, and for all of this, we're going to be using ChatGPT's ImageGen 2.0. Now, you can use this inside ChatGPT itself, or you can use something like Higgsfield or any of those other kind of tools which gives you access to these models. So let's take a really simple starting point example. Now, for this video, we're going to be using a kind of iterative process, much the same as what you would do if you're designing something for yourself or for a client. So while this is the starting point, we're going to use this as a basic reference image, and we're going to make changes to it in various different ways throughout this entire process. So let's take a look. This is what we started off with. Then I'm asked it to make some changes, some really simple changes. I modified the image with the following changes. Change the floor to walnut wood flooring, change the color of all the sofas and chairs to a tan leather, and set the overall lighting to be warm, mood lighting, photorealistic, and don't change the overall image layout, telling it exactly what aspect ratio that I wanted. So after a few moments, we end up with this image. And as you can see, it's retained everything from the original source image. It's made those changes that we've asked for, so all the sofas now are the same. The wood floor has replaced the marble floor that we had there, and the overall lighting has changed to a much more warmer, calm lighting. So pretty cool. We can take a starting point image and we can make changes to it. But none of this is kind of rocket science. None of this is really that difficult. You could probably do something like this inside Photoshop or Affinity or any image editing software. So pretty simple. But now let's say we want to change the angle of this. We want to use this for a hero section on a website. And ideally, we want to have the camera front and center so everything is kind of squared off and balanced. Well, we can ask AI to do exactly that. Much the same as the last one, I've asked this to adjust the camera position so it's directly in front of the table in the middle so the entire image is centered and symmetrical. Ensure that all the sofas are displayed and not cut off on the sides of the image. Now you'll notice I'm not getting super detailed with the prompts here. I'm basically telling it just what I want it to do. I'm not going into real detail. We will come on to more detail a little later when we take a look at some further examples. But for now, pretty simple. Anybody could do this. You don't need to understand the photography and all those kinds of things. Just telling it what you want to do, how the photograph needs to be laid out. Then in less than a minute, we get this. And as you can see, the cool thing to note here is that nothing inside the image has actually changed. The position of the camera has changed, exactly what we wanted, but it hasn't started introducing strange artifacts or changing the sofa styles or getting rid of the flowers on the middle of the table and so on. Even the details in the statue on the left-hand side and the plant on the right-hand side are pretty consistent. So we could easily use something like this if we wanted to change the physical angle of a photograph we've been provided. So now we've got the photo where we want. Let's say we want to get some ideas now for a layout for a hero section because, well, this is the kind of image we want and we want to provide something to the client before we get stuck in and start building and designing things. So, like we've seen before, let's just basically ask it what we want. So use this image to create a hero section mockup for an interior designer's website. Use glass morphism effects for a floating navigation. Very simple. And this is what it comes up with. Not really the nicest looking layout, but it has taken on board what I've asked it to do. So you can see there's our glass morphism effect. We've got this as a hero section, so it ties in nicely. We could use this. So we've got a starting point. And as always, we want to make changes because we want to get it closer to what I want. So I want bolder, sans serif fonts, make something look a bit more modern and fresh. So how do we do it? Well, we could try prompting it and we could go through that process. But often with AI, it makes it much easier to provide some example of what you're trying to achieve. So that's exactly what I did next. I went over to Dribble, took a look at some sites on there, some hero sections, found some typography that's in keeping with what I want. Now, obviously, I could create that myself if I wanted to. And this is what we kind of come up with. I wanted this much more bold, kind of simple layout. And again, I tell it exactly what I want. In less than a minute, this is what we end up with. And again, you can see it's keeping the background image, it's not changing that. Historically, when we've seen things like this with any kind of AI, it very quickly starts to make changes in between the various different iterations. Now, one little tip here that I would give you. When you use the same image over and over again, it does degrade in quality. As you can see, the detail in the background isn't as sharp and as crisp as it was to start off with. Now, if all you're doing is using this for a mock-up, then that's probably fine. You don't need to worry about it. However, if you find that this is going to be something you want to keep and you want to use, I would suggest you upload the original image and telling it what you want to do between the different iterations. This helps it keep consistent and keep the quality in check. It's not difficult to do, and if you kind of have that in your mindset, you'll get used to doing it. So we've got this. I like the look of this. Now let's just say we've got various different sections on the site, but I want to retain the same kind of hero section. So this interior design company, for example, doesn't do just living rooms. They do bathrooms and bedrooms and so on. So we need to have hero sections for each of these. Well, using this example, the next thing I want to do is ask it to create one for a modern, fresh, relaxing bathroom, keeping the same style. That's exactly what we've got here. As you can see, we now have a bathroom section with the same navigation across the top, the same style typography, buttons, and so on. All those things are there. The key difference here, though, is this background image is totally generated by AI. I didn't grab this or edit this or modify this from something like Pexels or anything like that. I just literally asked it to create a bathroom, specify how I want it to look, and so on. And as you can see, it looks good. So it goes back to the question, do we really need pro photographers for things like this? Yes, if you want to highlight key real products. Or actually, do we? So now once you've created your hero sections or your images for your website, the next thing you're going to want to do is download them and use them. But you want to make sure that they're as small and optimized as possible. And that's exactly where today's video sponsor, ShortPixel, comes in super handy. A slow image is slowing your website down. And ShortPixel automatically compresses and optimizes your images with no visible quality loss. You can generate blazing fast WebP and AVIF versions, cut file sizes dramatically, and speed up your pages in just a few clicks. It's perfect for WordPress and beyond. Faster images, faster website, better SEO. Try ShortPixel today using the link in the description down below. Let's say, for example, that I had the bath here, and maybe even the sink. So these were real products and I had some photographs of them. Doesn't even need to be great photographs. I can use those and I can pop that in when I create the prompt, tell it to use those, and it will use those images inside the overall image. Let me give you an example of that in action. So I took this image of my Stream Deck on my desk. As you can see, I probably want to do a little bit of dusting there, but it's a basic image. It shows what it is and it looks absolutely junk. But we can take that and we can make it so much better. With a couple of simple prompts, I now have this. Again, you will notice that it retains all of the key details. The name is still there. All the icons are exactly the same as the photograph. All this is exactly the same. But it's not quite what I want it to be. I want to get a little bit of interaction with it. I want something in the background, but I want to keep the overall basic layout. So a couple more prompts, and we end up with this. The cool thing here is I haven't supplied it with the keyboard, the Apple Magic Trackpad, or the Apple Studio display in the background. I literally told it what I wanted, and it's actually pulled in the correct images and products, which previously I found that it wouldn't do that. I might ask for a studio display and it would pull in some of the old Apple displays, or a keyboard or something like that. It would mess those up. But now we have an image we could easily use as a product photo in a product demo. Now you may not want to use this on something that's a actual Stream Deck site, but if you were selling these products or you were writing articles about them, or tips and guides and stuff like that, this means you don't have to mess about creating these images yourself. All the lighting looks good, very professional, everything's balanced, the quality is there, the depth of field, all those things are there. This is where, after talking to Jeffrey this morning, kind of want to draw attention to. Now, people might say that, well, I wouldn't know what to do here. It's not as difficult as you may think. You don't need to be a photographer, but if you have some understanding of photography, it will make your life considerably easier. For example, if you understand things like depth of field and the f-stops when it comes to cameras and things like that, you could basically tell it exactly what you want. So for example, where you want a shallow depth of field, you tell it you want to shoot with a shallow depth of field with a f2.8 lens, for example, and it will take that on board. You don't need to understand lighting. You can just tell it you want studio lighting or professional lighting. You don't need to have a solid understanding of photography, but it does help if you know some of those keywords. But if you don't, find an image that you think actually this is the kind of lighting or environment or whatever it is you want, and use that as a source reference image. That will help you get closer to what you're looking to achieve when you may not know the terminology to actually use. Here's another example. This is me taking a photograph of my AirPods. And as you can see, it's a photograph taken with a camera with not great lighting of some AirPods, and I'm holding them. Wouldn't use that as a product shot. No matter how much you try to tart that up, it's still going to look like absolute rubbish. But a quick prompt, and we get this. As you can see, I've obviously gone for a manicure because my nails look considerably better and all very nice and shiny, but the background's a little bit meh. It doesn't really have a great contrast because I wasn't specific in what I wanted. So, extra prompt, and now we get that. Still keeps the same layout, the same fingers, the same manicure, just puts a better background in place. Again, I've taken some other photographs of my AirPods, and this was the next shot I got. Didn't do what I wanted it to do. It didn't show the product in this main one, and as you can see, it's kind of cropped off the other images, neither of which I actually took photographs of. And then if we go down, there's the next one, and as you can see, that now is much better. It actually includes the products, the lighting's good, the background, the depth of field, the shadows, all those things look solid. Easily use these for promotional shots if you were selling this kind of product or creating reviews and so on. Now, that is quite cool, and I think you can probably agree you could easily use those images. They don't look fake because they're taking them from real-world photographs. It's just making those look so much better. But let's say you wanted a little bit more creativity, and these are just some simple examples. You could absolutely go to town with what you're doing here. But let's say I'm building an architect's website, and this is an image they've supplied. I think that's quite cool. I don't want to use it. What I want is more of a line drawing, a technical line drawing, and I want to use this image as the source for that. Well, we could do just that. Some simple prompts. As you can see, I want to make an image look like a technical line drawing with sketch notes that are handwritten. Plain white background, technical drawing, pencil left on the image as if it's been just finished. Aspect ratio 16.9. So this is what we're going to use for our hero section. 46 seconds later, we now have exactly that. It's retained all of the key parts of the overall image and also made it look like a line drawing, including the pencil, the technical drawing pencil in the corner. So now we've got a great starting point for our hero section. But what's our hero section going to look like? Let's use ChatGPT to give us some ideas. So like I say, modify the image to be a hero section of a modern architects firm called Atria Architects. Use large, bold, sans serif typography for the CTA, etc., etc., etc. So I told it what I wanted. Again, not hugely detailed. And after a couple of seconds, this is what we get back. Now, it might be perfect, and we might have plenty of scope to make changes. But like I said at the top of this video, it is an iterative process. But we've got that kind of sketch drawing going on there. We've got that kind of architecture feel. We could easily make this a blue background on the sort of architect's roll-out papers that we're used to seeing if you wanted to use blue on there. And you could change the typography here and all those kinds of things. But if you were just iterating ideas for yourself internally, or you wanted to share them with a client to get feedback, might have multiple different ideas here, you could easily use those as a starting point. Or if they like it, you've got the images there which you could easily upscale or use them as they are. You've got a really cool, creative way of being able to take basic photographs and make them something different. So as we saw, if you want to create things absolutely from scratch, you can do it. You want to create ideas for hero sections and background images and all those kinds of things, you can do it. Want to get creative, like we saw with the architect's website, and kind of create different styles from photographs, you can do it. So many different things you can do here. So I'm going to go back to that question that I leveled at the beginning of the video. Do you think that we could replace photographers, professional photographers, with AI tools like we've seen in this video? Let me know in the comment section down below because I would love to get your feedback. As always, all applicable links for everything I cover are in the description down below. My name is Paul C. This is WPTuts, and until next time, take care.